All it took was one spray of the perfume, and Boma realized that some gifts are better left unopened. Once upon a time there lived a beautiful woman who lived and worked in the big city. Her name was Teni, and she was greatly loved by those around her. Her smile lit up rooms like the first rays of dawn breaking through the night, and her laughter was so infectious it seemed to dance through the air, lifting everyone's spirits. It seemed to dance through the air, lifting everyone's spirits. One day, Teeny returned home from work, her heels clicking against the polished floors of her apartment hallway, and met a gift sitting outside her door. She picked it up, her perfectly manicured fingers tracing the edges of the box, and wondered who could have sent it. She walked into her house, scanning through the package to see if there was a note attached with a name, but all she found was a simple card that read, "May the aura of this perfume bring you the attention that you deserve." The perfume bottle was unique, a crystal glass with a golden nozzle that shimmered under her warm bedroom light, casting tiny rainbows on the walls. Teeny smiled, assuming it was from a secret admirer or a client who was only expressing gratitude. Curiosity got the better part of her, and without hesitation, she pressed the nozzle and sprayed it lightly on her neck. The fragrance was divine at first, a sweet blend of jasmine and sandalwood that filled the room like an ethereal presence. Teeny inhaled deeply, savoring the scent, but then her nose twitched and her eyes began to water slightly. Something felt off, like a faint whisper of warning in the back of her mind, but Teeny brushed it off as stress. She dropped the perfume on her dresser, its intricate design glinting under the lamp, and got herself ready for bed, knowing how busy her morning was going to be. When morning came, Teeny woke up feeling odd. There was a terrible smell in her room, thick and suffocating, and she could not help but ask herself where the smell was coming from. As she walked into the bathroom to freshen up, the smell heightened and Teeny realized that it was coming from her. "Did I poop on myself or something?" she thought to herself as she took a long bath, scrubbing herself until her skin hurt, but the smell persisted, foul and pungent, like stagnant water mixed with rotten eggs. When she arrived at work, her colleagues could not help but notice the horrible smell. "Is there a dead rat somewhere?" someone whispered, as another revealed that it smelled like sewage. Teeny recoiled in her chair, her heart sinking as she pondered why she was smelling. A colleague approached her, holding her nose softly. "Teeny, I think something might be wrong. Should we go see a doctor?" she said to Teni, whose eyes brimmed with embarrassment. Feeling so humiliated, Teeny rushed home to take another bath. No matter how many baths she took or how much expensive perfume she sprayed on her skin, the smell only grew worse, clinging to her like a shadow. That evening, as she sat at home, crying, her boyfriend Ayo decided to pay her a visit. They had been dating for a year, and Teeny hoped that he would provide some form of comfort to her. But as soon as he entered her apartment, he gagged and covered his nose. "What's that smell, Teeny? Please, I don't know what's happening to me," Teeny pleaded. Ayo stepped back, his face twisted in disgust. "You smell like a dead corpse. What did you do to smell this terribly?" he asked Teeny, who stood there heartbroken to hear such hurtful words from him. Ayo could not hide his discomfort. He held his nose tightly, gagging as he tried not to vomit. Teeny pleaded with him not to go, but Ayo warned her to stay away from him. "Until you fix yourself, I don't want to see you anywhere around me," Ayo said, as he walked out of her house, leaving her alone with her shame. Teni could not contain her hurt. She called her best friend Dara, who arrived at her home a few hours later. Dara met Teni broken and in tears. She assured Teni that everything would be fine, though she could not help but notice the stench that came from her friend. When did this all begin? Dara asked Teni, who narrated everything to her. She pointed at the perfume, which was still sitting on her dresser. I believe the perfume is behind everything that's happening, Teni said to her friend. Dara walked towards the dresser and picked up the perfume bottle. She stared at it for a brief moment, the golden nozzle catching the dim light, and smashed it to the ground. The contents evaporated before their eyes as Dara stared at the shattered remains on the floor. The golden shards glittered under the faint light, but the foul stench in the air remained as thick and suffocating as ever. It's gone now, Teni, Dara said softly, turning back to her friend. Whatever curse was in that bottle should be broken by now, but Teni could still smell it. It clung to her skin, her hair, and her very soul. Dara, what if it's not just the perfume? What if it's me? Teni's voice broke as tears ran down her cheeks. Dara hugged her tightly, though she flinched slightly as the smell assaulted her senses. No, Teni, it's not you. We'll figure this out together, okay? You're not alone. That night, Dara stayed with Teni. They barely slept as Teni cried herself into exhaustion. Later that night, Teni woke up to a faint sound of Dara talking to someone on the phone. I'm so happy it worked. It worked, Dara whispered on the phone as she thanked the unknown person for coming up with such a great plan. Teni stood there, shocked as she wondered what Dara was talking about. She returned to her bed and pretended to be asleep, her heart pounding in her chest. As Dara stood silently in the doorway, Teni could swear that she saw something cold and calculating in her friend's eyes. She squeezed her eyes shut, her mind racing with questions she had no answers to. What did she mean by, I'm happy it worked? Who was she talking to? Could Dara have done this to me? Teni thought to herself, deeply unable to sleep. By morning she had Dara leave the house in a hurry, and this heightened her suspicion as she wondered why Dara was acting so strangely. Hours passed, and Teni could not take her mind off the call. She sat in her living room alone, her mind swelling with thoughts as she heard a knock on her door. Teni wondered who it could be. With trembling hands, she opened the door and saw Sola, who was standing there with a smile on his face. Sola was a man from her past who had always been kind to her. For years he had expressed his love for her, but Teni had never felt the same way about him. Still, they remained friends before life pulled them in different directions. Teni had not seen Sola in 2 years and was shocked to see him at her door. Sola's face was a mix of concern and shock as he stepped into the house. The stench hit him immediately as he tried to hold his breath. Teni, what happened here? What is that smell? He asked. Teni burst out in tears in front of him. Sola could not stand to see her cry. He urged her to narrate the entire story to him, and Teni began to narrate all that happened. Sola sat beside her, ignoring the stench, as he listened to her heart-touching story. Through choking sobs, she told him everything about the perfume, the unbearable smell, Ayo's hurtful words, and how her life had crumbled in moments. When she mentioned Dara, her voice wavered. Sola, I think Dara knows something. I think she did something to me. Sola frowned, his brows knitted together. Dara, your best friend. Why would she do something like this? I don't know, Sola, but last night I heard her on the phone. She said, I'm so happy it worked. And when she thought I was asleep, she stood over me, just staring like she was watching me suffer. Sola stayed silent for a moment before speaking firmly. Teni, I will advise you not to jump to conclusions until you are really sure. Dara is your best friend and you don't want to do anything to jeopardize your friendship if you end up being wrong, he said to Teni, who nodded her head in agreement. The days that followed were filled with more suspicions as Teni could not help but question Dara's actions. On the day that she saw the perfume, the way she smashed the bottle to the ground without inspecting it or suggesting that they analyze its content felt rushed, as if she was trying to destroy evidence. That evening, as Teni sat with Dara in the living room, Dara said something that raised her suspicions. Sometimes we have to lose everything to see who really cares about us. The way she said it sent chills down Teni's spine, as though she was finally admitting to something. Teni could not hold back any longer. She confronted Dara, accusing her of being behind all that was happening. Dara, I can't keep pretending everything is fine when I know something isn't right. You've been acting so suspiciously, and I can't ignore it anymore. Dara raised an eyebrow, her expression unreadable. Teni, what are you talking about? You smashed the perfume without inspecting it, and you have been acting so strangely. The other night, you told someone that you are happy it worked, and then there's the way you look at me sometimes, like you enjoy seeing me suffer. Are you behind this, Dara? Are you behind this, Dara? Are you the reason my life has fallen apart? Dara could not believe her ears. For a moment, the two friends stared at each other in silence as Dara's lips curled into a bitter smile. After everything I've done for you, you dare accuse me of this. I've been there for you, Teni, while everyone left, while I walked away, while your life crumbled. I stayed, and this is how you repay me. Staying doesn't mean innocence, Dara. Teni shot back without remorse. Dara's face twisted with fury as she grabbed her purse and began to walk away. I won't stand here and let you accuse me of such evil. You've changed, Teni. You're not the friend I used to know. You're not the friend I used to know, she said as she stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her. Sola arrived shortly after Dara had left. He found Teni curled up on her couch in tears. She's gone, Sola. She didn't deny it. She just walked away. Sola sat beside her as he began to comfort her. Sometimes silence is an admission of guilt, Teni. But we'll get to the bottom of this. You're not alone in this fight. For the next few weeks, Sola stayed by Teni's side. They visited doctors, herbalists, and even traditional healers, but no cure worked. Each day, Teni grew weaker, not just from the smell, but from the emotional weight of her suffering. Finally, Sola informed Teni of a powerful prophet whom his friend had recommended to him. He called him on the phone, and the prophet agreed to visit her in her home. When he arrived, he revealed to her that she was cursed. You carry a curse, my child, a curse placed by someone who is so close to you, a friend who envies you and desires to see you broken. Teni's voice shook as she asked if it was Dara. The prophet nodded solemnly. Yes, your friend who you trusted the most is the cause of your suffering, but her curse is not permanent, he said as he handed her a substance to drink. Teni drank the liquid and began to feel a burning sensation in her body. It burned as it went down, and her entire body felt like it was on fire. Teeny screamed as her skin felt like it was being peeled away. Then suddenly it stopped. The air around her felt clean. Teeny took a deep breath, and for the first time in weeks, there was no stench. Sola, it's gone. The smell is gone, she said excitedly as Sola pulled her into an embrace, his voice trembling with relief. The stench was gone, and Teeny could not contain her joy. In the weeks that followed, Teeny's life slowly returned to normal. Her smile came back, her skin glowed again, and she started to feel alive. Sola remained by her side, his devotion unwavering. Their friendship blossomed into love, and Sola asked her to marry him. Teni, without thinking twice, agreed, and Sola was so delighted. "My mom is around, and I would like you to meet her," he said to Teni, who followed him home to meet his mother. They had dinner together, and Teni was able to win his mother's heart. After dinner, Sola pleaded with Teni to wait in the living room whilst he had a word with his mother. She sat there alone as she waited for him to return. Teni tried to reach for the television remote, which had fallen to the side of the sofa. She put her hand in to get it out when she saw a piece of rumpled paper by the sofa. Teni opened the paper and froze in shock to realize that it was the receipt for the evil perfume, the same perfume that almost ruined her life. Sola was the one who gifted her the perfume and not her best friend Lara, who she had accused of being behind it all. Just as she stood there, frozen, Sola walked into the room and saw the receipt in her hand. He froze in the doorway, his eyes locking onto the crumpled receipt in Teni's hand. For a brief moment, time seemed to stand still as they both stared at each other. "Sola, you bought the perfume." Sola sighed heavily, rubbing his face with both hands before slowly walking towards her. "Teni, I can explain." "Explain?" She snapped, her voice rising. "Explain how you cursed me. Explain how you stood by me while I suffered. How you watched me fall apart while pretending to care." Sola's shoulders slumped as his face twisted with guilt. "I didn't mean for it to go this far, Teni. I just wanted you to see me, to need me. To need you." Teni's voice broke. "You destroyed me, Sola. You watched me lose everything, my job, my relationship, my dignity, and you pretended to save me. Why, Sola? Why would you do this?" Sola stood across from her, his hands shaking as he spoke. "Because I loved you, Teni. For years I loved you, but you never seemed to reciprocate my love. I was always the good friend, the safe choice, the man you never considered. So one day thoughts ran through my mind that if I made you vulnerable, maybe you might finally see me and love me the way I love you. I visited the prophet who told me to bring a bottle of perfume. I did as he instructed and watched him do some incantations on it. He promised me that he had the remedy, so I planted the gift at your doorstep, hoping that my plan would work. When everything played out the way that I wanted, I invited the prophet back to your home to give you the remedy. Teni, all I did was because I love you so much," Sola said to Teni, whose tears fell freely as she staggered backwards, clutching the receipt in her hand. "You were supposed to be my friend Sola. You were supposed to help me, but instead you broke me. You let me believe that Dara, my best friend, was the villain. You let me carry that hatred in my heart for this long." Sola stood there, his hands reaching towards her. "Teni, please, I'm so sorry. I never wanted this to happen. I thought I could fix it before it went too far. No, Sola, she cut him sharply. You don't get to ask for forgiveness. You don't get to act like this was a mistake when you planned it all. I trusted you, Sola, she whispered as she turned and began to leave. I want you out of my life. Hear me. Don't call me. Don't look for me. And don't ever come near me in your life again, she said as she walked out of the door. In the days that followed, Teni focused on healing. She reached out to her best friend Lara, apologizing for all the horrible things she had said to her. Lara hugged her tightly. You were hugged her tightly. You were hurt, Teni. You were desperate for answers. I forgive you, and I'm just glad that you're okay. Teni and Lara hugged each other tightly as Lara finally revealed who she was talking to that night. It was her brother who was planning a surprise birthday party for their mother. That night was her mother's birthday, and Lara chose to stay with Teni, instead seeing how distressed she was. Dara's brother had called to tell her that their plan had worked, and Dara was so delighted to hear the news. Teni felt stupid for jumping to conclusions. She apologized once again, and Dara forgave her with a smile. That was how Dara and Teni mended their broken friendship. Slowly, Teni began to rebuild her life again. She found a new job, reconnected with old friends, and learned the bitter lesson that some gifts are better left unopened. This story reminds us to stay cautious and value honesty in all our relationships. Always remember that not all gifts are given with good intentions, and trust must be built on actions, not assumptions. Not assumptions. True love and friendship should uplift and heal, never manipulate or harm. As you navigate life's challenges, take time to uncover the truth, approach situations calmly, and prioritize forgiveness when it's deserved. Wisdom and careful judgment will guide you in protecting what truly matters. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to check out the other amazing and engaging videos on my channel. There's so much more to explore. Don't miss out. A former married Lee's business partner. It was indeed a glorious and colorful wedding. I stood as former's mother, while seeing who ought to stand as the father, since he was the first son. Decided Mike should be the one because he was now their father. Maya was touched by this humility of seeing. He realized that he and his wife had taught and brought them up the right way. He felt so proud of himself as the father. So Lee and his wife stood as the parents of the bride. Cian married a big fashion designer, and together they made magic. Their brand was known far and wide, while Nick engaged a very beautiful teacher named Cindy. Emma and Anita continued to wander from village to village until they finally settled in a faraway village called Elta, where no one knew them, and decided to settle there. Elta was a very peaceful and prosperous village. The land had not known war or any kind of trouble for several decades. Furthermore, the people were very hospitable. They welcomed Emma and Anita warmly, offering smiles and small gifts, as Emma had lied that her husband's people lied against her, accusing her of killing her husband and driving her out of her husband's house and village too. She lied that she was an orphan and didn't have anywhere to go. She told them she had suffered, wandering from one village to the other, and no one accepted them. Therefore, the people of Elta gave Emma and her daughter a place to stay. They were also given a portion of land to start farming so they could take care of themselves. The land was fertile, and Emma, though sly, showed diligence in cultivating it. So they started farming and selling in the Elter market. The bright and colorful market buzzed with life, and the villagers, in their kind-hearted ways, offered support whenever they could. Everything seemed normal and okay so far, with no evil report from any of them. The villagers really liked them because they were all well-mannered. Some even gave them gifts out of pity. Meanwhile, May's burial was fixed. She died at a very good age, 100 years, and was buried in a colorful way. She was buried in a colorful way. She was buried beside her husband under a tall oak tree. Grace wept for her grandmother because she had grown fond of her. On the day of the burial, Eve remembered her mother, Bella, when she saw the guests coming but didn't see her mom. Then she remembered that her mom and sister had been banished, never to set their feet there ever again. When Nora noticed the absence of Former, she went looking for her everywhere. She asked Former's husband if he had seen her, but he didn't know her whereabouts either, so they both kept searching. The garden area was filled with blooming flowers, which added serenity to the air as they searched. She finally saw her crying behind the house, under the shade of an old fig tree. "Sweet, why are you crying? What is the matter? We've been looking for you everywhere," the husband said, but there was no response from Former. She kept crying. "Please talk to me," Grace insisted. Then she said, "It's nothing. It's just that I realized that my mom and sister won't be coming for the burial. Or rather, they can never come here again. I know she's evil. She has done all manner of evil things, but she's still my mom, and Emma is still my sister, and I miss them. I understand how you feel. We can't change our parents. No matter how evil they are still our parents. We have to accept them that way and move on with our lives. We don't choose our parents, okay? I know," she said. "So it's totally fine if you're feeling this way. You can go ahead and call her. I won't be offended. I totally understand. But be very careful." When Sean and Nick heard that Former was crying because of her mom and sister, they felt it was unnecessary. They never remembered their mom. She had left them to rot in jail, so they didn't care if she was alive as long as she was paying for her evil. They were okay. When Former called her mom, she picked up the phone and said, "Hello." As soon as she realized it was Former, she yelled at her and called her an evil child. "It's your fault that we are in this condition. If you had listened to me, we wouldn't have ended this way. I will never forgive you. You chose that witch Grace over your own mother and sister. Mama, after everything you've been through, there's still no atom of change in you. Mama, change. It's for your own good. The stubborn fly that refuses to listen goes to the grave with the corpse. Mama, you have your chance now. Change before it's too late. Former, change, kill you there. What nonsense change are you talking about? Be this girl. Don't ever call me again in your entire life. Don't call me again, you hear me? At least I tried my best," Former said. "I should have listened to Sean and Nick when they said you will never change until you die. Get out, stupid children," and she dropped the call. 1 year later, Anita started dating a young man named Brian from Elter Village. They were all over the village. They were all over the village. They were truly in love with each other. The small village of Elter, with its rolling green hills, became their romantic sanctuary. But Emma was an unrepentant soul. It looked like her heart was hardened the more. Instead of falling in love with the king, or at least the prince, and removing us from this mess, you are here patrolling the village with this villager and bush boy who can't offer anything. Hey, Mama. So after all these years and everything we've been through, you've still not learned anything at all. I would have listened to Grace when she told me about your evil behavior. My life has been ruined because of you, Mama. I'm afraid that you can still talk this way. Do you want to go to your grave with this attitude? Shut up your mouth before I shut it for you, she said. What do you know? Stay here. You don't want to better your life. I'll figure out a way and go to the top myself while you remain very low with your poor boyfriend. Auntie said, Anita is right. We've been through a lot and you've not still learned your lessons. It's because of this evil attitude that they left me. I've told them that I've changed and I've decided to be a better person. You know, they call me often now. I've told them everything that we went through and what happened. Who knows? One day they might get me an apartment in the city. As long as I can have a small business, I'm okay. At least I can be selling food stuff. There's a lot of money in it, so I won't have to disturb them for my weekly or monthly ups again. Even if I don't return to our old village, I'm okay as long as I get to see my children in the city. After all, none of my kids are living here. My husband is dead. They know I've suffered. They intentionally didn't take my calls, initially because they wanted me to learn. Now I've learned from our mistakes and what it has cost us. Give yourself a second chance and be kind. Even if it's just a little, try and be kind. Start from there, okay? But it looked like an effort in futility. She never listened to Auntie or Anita, so she continued with her evil heart. They certainly don't know what they are saying. I'm talking about being an in-law to the king, and you're here saying nonsense. I'll figure it out myself. As the saying goes, like attracts like. She quickly attracted some evil friends like her. Before long, she knew an evil Baba, just like Oko, who was also banished from a neighboring village, not very far from Elta. Now the plan was to become the third wife of the king, who already had two wives. She wanted to marry him, so she could eliminate the other two wives and become the queen. I'll remain royalty till I die. I will die with honor and dignity. When I and that stupid daughter of mine hear my name, I'll be referred to as a queen of Fu. I'll make sure I love the prince and take care of him. So by the time he is crowned the king, he will take care of me and shower me with love as his mother until I die. I won't suffer again. Emma was a very greedy woman who thought of herself alone. She didn't care if anyone got hurt, as long as it would make her happy. She went for it. With the help of one of those wicked women she met the Baba, who gave her a substance to add into her body lotion and rub on her face. As soon as she saw the king and he looked at her, he would helplessly fall for her. Emma was super excited. I'll soon be queen. I'll soon be the queen of Fu, she said, mocking Anita and Auntie. Be there with your poor village rat of a boyfriend. Mama, you have big eyes, and that's your problem. You always want what you can't get, and even if it means killing an innocent person to satisfy your lust, you will do it. You're so much intoxicated with power and wealth. I just regret listening to you all these years. This second chance that I've gotten, I won't let you destroy it for me. Brian and I love each other. You know he's a graduate and not just a village rat like you said. He's applying for jobs in the city. In fact, tomorrow he is going for an interview in the city. He will get a job, marry me, and we will leave this village soon. Auntie's children will take her to the city, and you will remain here with your evil life. Remain where you're talking to the next queen of Fu. Whatever you do, count us out. And if you do anything funny, I will expose you. You dare not. You know the kind of mother you have. Mama, I've told you my own. Mama, I know you too well. Before you ruin my life again, I'll go and do the right thing. And what do you mean by the right thing? You better be careful, she said. Anita opened up to Brian and told him the truth. He was angry at her, but he realized she was no longer that person and had changed. She was influenced by her mother, so they continued their relationship, hiding everything about them from Emma. That night, Emma woke up, as instructed by the Baba at 12 a.m., to speak what she wanted into the substance before using it on her face to see the king in the morning. And so she did. She was instructed not to let anyone see her, else she would face the consequences. But while she was still speaking, Anita woke up to use herself. She saw Auntie sleeping, but her mom wasn't there. Where has this mischievous woman gone to? She asked herself. She looked around the compound and found her holding a substance with her eyes open wide, talking. The dim moonlight highlighted her desperate expression. Hey, Mama, what are you doing? This woman has started again. Immediately, Emma screamed. This evil child, you've killed me. She started crying, fell on the ground, and started speaking nonsense. She went mad. Mama, I warned you, but you won't listen. Look at what you've done to yourself. Anita quickly woke Auntie up. They took a rope and they both tied her. By the dawn of the day, she gave up the ghost and died. Nobody knew what killed her, not even the woman that took her to the Baba, as Emma went there on her own and never disclosed it to anyone except the Baba. Her evil had caught up with her, so Emma died unrepentant. She was given a portion where strangers are buried to bury her. Auntie called Forma and told her everything that had happened. She also told her about her relationship and how she had learned from the mistakes they had made in the past. I should have listened to you. I wish I had listened earlier. My life would have been better. After 6 months, Auntie's children took her to the city, rented an apartment for her, and opened a food business for her. Anita and Brian got married. He later got a job in the city with an apartment and an official car. So he and his wife relocated to the city. Anita and Auntie felt pity for Emma, how her life had ended, but there was nothing they could do. She decided her fate already as she refused to change. And so, the evil of Emma came to an end. This story delivers a powerful lesson about the consequences of greed, selfishness, and refusing to change. Emma's life demonstrates how an unrepentant heart and an insatiable desire for power can lead to destruction. Her unwillingness to learn from her mistakes and embrace kindness not only ruined her relationships, but also caused her ultimate downfall. It serves as a warning that harboring evil intentions and pursuing self-serving goals at the expense of others will eventually lead to ruin. On the contrary, Anita and Auntie's transformations highlight the power of self-reflection and the courage to change. By acknowledging their flaws, taking responsibility for their actions, and choosing a better path, they found redemption and a brighter future. This reminds us of the importance of humility and personal growth, no matter how challenging it may seem. Furthermore, the story also underscores the value of compassion and kindness, as shown by the people of Elta, while also cautioning us to exercise wisdom in extending help to others. Thank you for watching my channel. Stay tuned for more inspiring stories and life lessons. Are you sure they won't catch us? Are you sure it's safe? Lara asked Bola, with worry written all over her face as they were about to sneak out of the school through a secret path in the fence. This is not our first or second time doing this, so just trust us and tag along. But if you're not bold enough, then go back to the hostel and read your books as usual. Bola replied to her with an angry face, her voice dripping with irritation. I wonder why you're asking such a stupid question. Didn't you say you want to be one of us? Funmi asked as well, raising an eyebrow as she adjusted the straps of her designer handbag. Lara didn't want to offend them. She wanted to feel among the big girls of Brian's college, so she summoned courage and sneaked out of school with them. Lara had gained admission into Brian's college a few months ago on a scholarship as a boarding student. She came from a very poor background, but she was very brilliant and intelligent, so she was fortunate to get a scholarship into Brian's college. When she got to Brian's college, she took her studies very seriously, just as her parents advised her before she left the village for the city. She avoided trouble and made sure not to break any school rules or regulations. However, Laura started getting distracted when she met a girl called Bola. Unlike Laura, Bola came from a very rich family. Her parents were politicians, so she had everything she wanted. She was a spoiled child who would often ridicule and bully those from poor families, alongside her partner Funmi, who was also from a wealthy home. Lara envied Bola, and she admired the way they lived in school, being able to buy whatever they wanted, and the way everyone respected them. Bola's flashy jewelry and Funmi's constant chatter about vacations abroad captivated Laura. So, she started getting closer to them. Lara's friends warned her against Bola and Funmi, but she stubbornly refused to listen. One day, Bola and Funmi told Lara that they would sneak out of school at night to visit a club and that they would like her to come with them if she really wanted to be one of them, Lara felt so happy and accepted to join them. When it was time, Laura was scared, but she built the courage and decided to go with them. When they sneaked out of the school compound, Bola and Funmi changed into skimpy and short dresses. They also gave a dress to Laura and asked her to wear it, but she wasn't comfortable with the clothes she was given because it was too short and skimpy. This cloth is too short for me. My lap is exposed and my back is open. Don't you have another piece of clothing for me? Lara asked, holding the dress against her body, her voice trembling. Are you serious? Too short? You want to go to the club looking like an old woman? Or what? See, if you won't wear that cloth, go back into the hostel. I told you not to bring this village girl with us. If you won't wear it, then go back into the school and stay away from us. They threatened her again, glaring at her as they adjusted their own outfits. Laura foolishly succumbed to their threats and wore the clothes that she was given. It was indeed very short and clung to her body like glue on paper, revealing her thighs and exposing most of her body. When they had finished preparing, Bola brought out a cell phone, which she hid in her backpack, and called a strange number, telling the person that they were ready. In less than 10 minutes, a luxurious car pulled over in front of them, its headlights piercing through the dimly lit street, and the driver came down to hug Bola. Then he asked them to enter the car so he could take them to the club. Lara felt uneasy, her palms sweating, but she didn't have the courage to refuse. Together, they entered the car, with Bola seated in front, while Lara and Funmi were at the back. The man drove off.